it's my 18th camp and addressing media, and typically it's you spend a lot of time like rehashing all the accomplishments of the off season. So this will be brief. It's needless to say, it's been frustrating because we are trying to do some different things as we transition into a new leadership group and really a new direction with the franchise moving forward in 2026. So as I've tried to remind myself all offseason that this offseason just continues to keep going, it's perpetual. But reality is with pitchers and catchers reporting yesterday, going through their physicals today, and they'll be on the field here probably in the next hour, the spring training's starting. And that means we are right around the corner from our season, and so decisions have to be made. And as we start to think about our roster, what we want to look like, there are some things we still would like to tweak and try to do. Obviously, the pink elephant in the room is what are we going to do with Nolan Arenado? You think back to when we first met on this in October, to the GM meetings, etc. And candidly, we're still looking at what that might look like. And could something happen in the next week? Possibly. Could this go into camp? Possibly. So I really don't have like a definitive answer for everybody that's curious on what will be the answer. So patience is required. And as I flip the script from him and then sort of look at what our camp is and what we are seeing, this transition is going to be about a youth movement. It is going to be about giving players opportunities. We are excited about the guys we have in this camp. I mean, obviously next week when position players report, it's going to have a little different feel to it. But nonetheless, the Cardinals are excited about directionally where we're going, but we certainly understand that there could be some things that happen between now and the time we get to St. Louis. So at this point, I'll turn it out to questions.
Well, obviously you don't know how it's going to shake out, but obviously Nolan Arenado is a big piece for you to figure out where it's a fit. Are you optimistic that at some point you'll be able to find a spot for him before camp ends?
It's hard to say. I mean, like if you think back to when we first started discussing the possibility of trading him, we thought all along that we could probably do something this offseason, but it just hasn't happened. I think you can determine on your own why that might not be happening. Could be the free agent market, could be who's available in the free agent market. I imagine there's a direct correlation there. But ultimately, I did not have a large list of teams, so it wasn't like 29 I could take them to. So I'm just trying to navigate what I could work with, and obviously it hasn't moved at the pace many of us had hoped for.
Do you think it will at some point? Do you have a feeling?
I really don't know. I mean, I've always been an optimist on trying to get deals done, so I am hopeful, but we'll see.
Well,
If
there's no deal by Monday, do you expect him to report?
Yeah.
To be here?
Mm-hmm.
Is it awkward at all? Is it tenable? Like if he had to be here, could it work out?
I think so. I mean, we're adults. Would it be awkward? I imagine there might be a moment of awkwardness, but I still think that he's a professional baseball player. He's currently a St. Louis Cardinal, and we all understand that once you're here, it's pushing for that. And would that mean then trying to accomplish something maybe during spring training? Possibly, but there's no guarantees at that point.
Mo, what does the spring training with Nolan here look like versus one without him?
Well, I think the difference is how you define the word opportunity, right? If you're somebody like a Nolan Gorman, where's your at-bats come from now? So I definitely think there's a direct correlation there. So as we talk about this transition, as we talk about opportunity as one of those themes, it would be a limiting factor to some individuals.
Does it limit you in a different way too, either financially with what you want to do, depth-wise at other spots?
Well, I think like overall, we like what we've been able to bring into camp right now. Does that mean there's not some activity we might still try to do? The answer is no. We still might be open to that, but I would say it's not in the part where we're just handcuffed at this point.
Did Nolan or the agent say that he would definitely report? I mean, then you said yeah, but
well, I have not spoken to him about that because I don't know if that's going to need to have that conversation. So cross that bridge when I have to.
When you talk about new direction, where do playoffs figure into that new direction?
Well, we'll see how we play. Our goal is to win this year. Our goal last year was to win. We fell a few games short of getting to the postseason, but our hope is that if all things go right, we feel like we have a veteran pitching staff, we feel like we have some emerging arms, and we feel like we have a really talented young core. So, it's not a bad bet to make on a young team.
Well, along those lines, you talk about wanting the young guys to play. Can you talk about how difficult it is, though, when you have five incumbent starting pitchers, but you also have McGreevy, Matthews, Liberatore, etc.?
Yeah, I think those are great names, by the way. I think McGreevy obviously showed he's capable of pitching in the big leagues last year, and I think that's great depth. But it's also knows he's going to have a great career, hopefully, at the big leagues. And then you mentioned somebody like Matthews. Now, he had a brief stint at AAA. I would imagine that's where he's going to start and see what he develops like. But the whole point is, as we begin this transition, which we have begun, but the idea is to how do we set ourselves up for 26, 27, and beyond?
Well, where's your confidence level with the offense? You've taken a couple of veteran bats out. It was a struggle last year with running scoring. What's your confidence level that the offense can be better?
Well, I think it's twofold. One is obviously we changed leadership in the coaching side, so hopefully a different voice can help generate that a positive outcome there. And then the other part is when you look at some of these younger players that we're talking about taking that step forward, what do they do? Is this a sophomore thing, a junior thing? Where are they in terms of graduating to be a regular major league player? Time will tell.
The bullpen was so instrumental to last year's success, and obviously you've talked about maybe adding a veteran reliever. It hasn't happened as of yet, but there does seem to be a lot of internal candidates, specifically on the younger side. What do you say about or think about that group coming in and competing for bullpen spots?
Well, I do think that allows us some flexibility. I do feel like when I look at the last 30 some years with the Cardinals, there always was that sort of veteran voice in the bullpen that tended to help manage what was going on down there. So I do think there's some value in that, but I definitely think there's some exciting arms. And in terms of do we have the horsepower and the arms to get people out? I think the answer is yes. But as you know, over the 162, it's nice to have someone down there that can help kind of manage it. And you don't want to always put that on your closer because that's such a different role.
Sure.
So that is something that we are kind of thinking about.
Are there any names very early that you're seeing as maybe ahead of the pack, or names that you're excited to watch from the relief pitching side?
I would just say, my initial blush at looking at this group is they all came in prepared. Mm-hmm. And from brief conversation as I was walking out here with the medical staff, everybody looks healthy. And so from a standpoint of where they look like they're ready to go, that's good. I haven't really been down here long enough to say which one has, changed their profile or added 3 miles an hour or something like that.
Okay.
Mo, you mentioned not being able.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this thing with Nolan is unlike anything you've been through in a spring training, right? Just the nebulousness of it.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that is even close to this.
Yeah. Does it
just
share any
odd.
similarities with an extension in the sense that sometimes, you think back 14 years, Albert says, I want something before camp starts or nothing, versus Paul Goldschmidt going, we'll see how this evolves? I mean, is it all into that?
Not really, because in those cases, even if you weren't able to do something, you still were accepting and ready to move. This has a little bit of awkwardness, as Martin said. I mean, there's some truth to that. So, have some time to try to avoid awkwardness, and if not, we'll deal with awkwardness.
You've been
Have you
comfortable.
corresponded with him, Mo, or are you mostly with the agent?
I haven't had a lot of contact with that camp for the last couple of weeks, but part of that's just been distraction of arbitrations and things like that. But I'll definitely check in here in the next day or two.
Mo, you've been comfortable operating in kind of that fluid zone through a spring, just to see what happens, what opportunities, even free agents, adding Kyle Lewis in the middle. Do you have to know how comfortable Nolan is operating in that fluidness, where he might take the field for this team one day of spring while you're talking about trading him to another team?
Is that a possibility? Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you want me to answer that in terms of how he's thinking.
I guess I'm
you'd
wondering
have to
if
ask
you need to
him.
know if that's a question you need to have answered from him when he arrives.
I don't know, if you're on this team, don't you have to come?
Yeah, no, you do.
We
But
don't
once
have
you see it-
holdouts in this sport.
right?
So, but if the opportunity would present itself to do something, I think he'd be open to it.
Okay.
Well, you mentioned not being able to kind of shop him around to 29 different teams. How large a group were you having to work with this winter, and has that expanded at all over the last couple of months?
It has not.
Okay.
It was 5 teams.
It was fun.
Oh, speaking of Nolan's, I want to ask you about Gorman. Can you describe what the sweet spot is for him? He's going to strike out, obviously, some, but last year was too much, but other years maybe okay. What is there a sweet spot? I don't know if it's a percentage. How would you describe that?
Well, I think, like, for me, when I look at him, and obviously I'm not the hitting coach or the coach in general, but, I feel like he has the ability to be the guy that can really drive the ball to left center. And I feel like when he's taking advantage of that, that's when doubles and home runs happen. And so, yeah, I think we all understand the trade-off of the strikeouts, but you still have to balance that with the production. And so, when you think about somebody that's like capable of being a 25 or 30 plus home run guy, knowing that you might get 30 strikeouts, I still feel like his value comes from not just the 30 home runs, but like what types of doubles and that kind of production. So ball and play for him, I think, does matter a little bit.
We said 30, you mean 30%?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mo, is it fair to describe for Jordan Walker this spring as sort of a fresh runway opportunity to really feel comfortable and show they broke? And it's been, I got stranded yesterday on the highway, now the glasses. But Jordan Walker, what kind of runway could this be for him in spring and heading into the season?
Well, I think you got to remind yourself he's 22, so patience is real here. But obviously, last year did not go the way he had hoped for him or us. So adjustments have to be made. But in terms of like trying to, write the first chapter and the last chapter based on 6 weeks, probably not the best strategy.
Did Contreras and Gray wanting to be here, did that shift what you guys wanted to do? In fact, a couple of veterans wanted to stick around?
Not necessarily in the sense of change. It was really about understanding how I could meet, payroll goals, but then also trying to thread a needle to remain competitive. And, had those guys asked to be moved or considered to be moved, it would have, definitely changed our off-season strategy. But, they didn't, and I'm glad they didn't, because I still think this team can be fun to watch.
Do you all expect everyone to be able to report on time as far as immigration stuff, visa stuff, all of that?
I have not been told that we have any concerns.
Has that process been different at all over the last month or so? Is that something that you all had to be prepared for? Has it changed?
It was something that we looked into post-inauguration, but we were told everything should be fine.
You guys are Major League Baseball looks into that.
Major League Baseball did, yep. But we asked them.
Right, yeah.
Well, we've talked in the past how deadlines tend to increase urgency. Do you sense that at all as you've re-engaged with teams that there's an improved urgency?
Well, I think we all, like, there is no deadline, right?
Yeah.
In this particular case, and we can, create our own if
Like
we
a
want.
report deadline.
But I do feel like as teams are beginning to report, that it definitely feels like there's more urgency to see if there could be some way to bring this to conclusion.
You mentioned Gorman's at-bats if Arenado's still on the team, but isn't it really more of a trickle down to, like, he'll still probably get at-bats at second base, so then you move Donovan to outfield, maybe Newt Bartis, and suddenly it's either Victor Scott or Siani being truly affected by that?
You could take that domino approach and put 8 or 9 names in there.
Yeah.
So
But it's
that'd
gonna
be a
affect
difficult
some.
interview, and I don't want to go down that path,
Yeah.
but yes, it's going to affect young people's at-bats.
How was this spring for you thus far? Just in terms of this will be your last one here, obviously, in this job. I would imagine this is not what you anticipated this looking like. It's here. How are you kind of looking at it from a global view?
I'm looking at it as just part of my job at the moment. Like, I really haven't had that moment of reflection of, here it is, last time of this example. But, right now it's still trying to figure out a way to, achieve certain goals with this team. And ultimately, that's what we're working towards. I will say, and Derek mentioned it, it's an oddity, right? Like, normally, like, we open this thing with, like, feeling really good about what we accomplished in the off season, and then the hope of spring. Everybody gets excited when they're down here, and we go play baseball. But right now, you have this over our heads, and that's what we're just working through.
What are those goals from a competitive standpoint? What is the end of the year?
Oh, I don't make predictions like that, and I don't answer that. But the point is it's we going into this hoping to win baseball.
Mo, in the past week or so, you added Anderson on a minor league deal. You made the trade for Hellman. How much of those are just kind of standard spring moves, and how much of those are reflective of where you are payroll-wise and some of
No, those are just standard moves. Those are
Okay.
not like.
Don't read into it.
No, I would not. And really, like, when you think about like Hillman from Minnesota, he's just a very athletic,
Yeah.
very versatile player. And when you're looking at all these different moving parts, depending on how things fall, gives us a lot more flexibility.
Right, and you wanted to get yourself first in line.
Exactly. And a true shortstop, so
Oh,
gives you
okay.
some protection on that side as well.
Versus adding a Brandon Crawford
Mhm.
midstream.
Right.
Your teams usually leave here talking World Series or bust. Like, how different is it for you to hear? Now it's more about runway and opportunity and personal growth for guys, things like that. Instead of like looking at that prize at the end, how different of a feeling is that for you?
Well, I think maybe the language has changed, but my hope and wishes haven't. Like you walk in that door right now, that group wants to win baseball games. That group believes in themselves, and that's important. It's not always what you spend, it's not always what you sign, it's not always what you trade for. Sometimes it's about what you have and what do you do with it.
Do you have anybody on? Drew Rom is on a bit of a delayed schedule, and
But he's transitioned from rehab to camp.
oh, so
now,
he's baseball now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Anybody
not that I'm aware of as of this morning.
Yeah.
Santos?
Yeah. Sam.
Yeah. He's in rehab.
Yeah.
He's transitioned.
I was trying to not give you that, but
Yes.
but no one else is delayed.
From what I was told when I walked down here.
We're at the beginning of this journey, but can you describe your excitement for seeing JJ Weatherholt and what he can become and seeing him here in the big league camp?
I think he's just an exciting player. I don't know him real personally in terms of like friendship wise, but from when I'm around him, he's just very polite, very sincere. You can tell he's a focused guy. Did get to watch him play last year down here in Palm Beach, and he understands how to hit. So I think you look at sort of like the last 30 years with the Cardinals, and obviously Pujols is an outlier to anything, right? 13th round, and ended up will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But then I was like thinking about all the people that we've drafted, like a J.D. Drew stands out as like the guy had like legitimate skills and kind of performed from day one, and JJ might be kind of that next type of person. So that's not him saying he's Pujols or JD, but that kind of talent, just you can tell it's going to move quick.
How do you evaluate the ebbs and flows with Helsley this offseason? I mean, he even thought most of the early parts of the offseason he was going to be traded, and then he got word that he was not going to be traded, and now he's going to be a free agent at the end of next season. So how do you look at
Pitch well.
his standing?
That's what I'd say, pitch well. Look, you guys write a lot of things that I never say, right? Or you hear rumors that might be said, and for players to digest that or what they want to do with it, I can't control that. I told him and his representative early on that he was not going to be traded. I never speak in absolutes because you never know, but I gave him, that was not my goal to move him. Mm-hmm. And so, how he feels about all of that, you'll have to ask him, but I felt like from an organizational standpoint, we kind of pointed out what this was going to look like.